Good afternoon. My name is Alice Kwenda, a counselor with Parklands Baptist Church. Today I'm going to present to you a very challenging topic in our community called gender-based violence. Gender-based violence is violence visited upon a person based on their gender, and it's a life-threatening protection, health, and human rights issue. It affects an individual, the community, and a family. Gender is a socially constructed term associated with being a female or a male. While women, men, boys, and girls may suffer from gender-based violence, it affects the most vulnerable, who are women, adolescents, and children, and those who have challenges. There are 4 forms of gender-based violence: sexual violence, physical violence, economic violence, and emotional violence. What you may ask is sexual violence. Sexual violence is any attempt to obtain a sexual act or unwanted advances or comments made sexually towards a person without their consent. Physical violence is an act of physical violence that is not sexual in nature. Economic violence is denial of rightful access to economic resources meted on a person. Emotional violence is when one is mentally or psychologically affected by sexual violence, physical violence, or economic violence. How does it affect and manifest in adults? Gender-based violence affects adults sexually through rape, attempted rape, or gang rape, sodomy, incest, sexual assault, or induced indecent acts. Under physical violence, one can be hit, slapped, or choked. Under economic violence, one can be denied a chance to go and get employment, or a woman can be denied contraceptives, the use of contraceptives, or denied to get inheritance. Some are exposed to FGM. Under emotional violence, we have those who are given unwanted advances, threatened by other sexual violences, or physical violence, or economic violence. How does it affect and manifest in children? There are touching behaviors and non-touching behaviors. Under sexual violence, there is defilement, there is incest, there is sodomy, sexual assault, or induced indecent acts. Under physical violence, a child can be hit, can be slapped, or any other body injury or discomfort against the child. Under economic violence, a child can be denied their basic rights, that is food, shelter, clothing, health, security, or an education. Girls can undergo FGM or be denied a chance to finish school because of pregnancy. Under emotional violence, a child is threatened with physical or sexual violence, intimidation, humiliation, forced isolation, or stalked. The non-touching behaviors include showing pornography to a child, exposing a person's genitals to a child, photographing a child in sexual poses, or watching a child undress or use the bathroom, often without the child's knowledge. Those are voyeurs and peeping toms. Facts about child sexual abuse. There are facts and myths, and some of the facts about sexual abuse are that sexual predators are everywhere and could be anyone in the church, in schools, sports, coaches, music instructors, babysitters, or even family members. So let's not assume that because we interact with them often, they cannot be offenders. Children do not lie about sexual abuse. That is a fact. Children barely tell of sexual abuse. That is a fact. Female children are mostly violated than male children. There are myths on sexual violence. And some of the myths are as follows. Victims or survivors have asked for it by being seductive, careless, drunk, or that rape is caused by perpetrators' uncontrollable sexual urge, being mentally ill, or they cannot help themselves. That is a myth. If a victim does not physically struggle, or a woman achieves an orgasm, or a man ejaculates, then they have not been sexually assaulted. That is a myth. That serial rapists or common offenders, repeat offenders, do not exist is a myth. That men are mostly violated by homosexual or bisexuals is also a myth. What are the facts that causes one not to report when they experience gender-based violence? Some of them are the fear of consequences, like being shamed or punished or blamed for the act, fear of dismissal, that no one will believe that they went through the experience, manipulation, where one is given a gift so that they may not say what happened, self-blame. Some victims believe that they caused the situation that they are experiencing. Protection, especially if the perpetrator is a member of the family and they want to protect the member of the family. Another is age. Minors may not be able to comprehend that what they are going through is a gender-based violence, so they may not report it or speak to someone about it. Physical and mental disability will also cause one not to be able to report a case or to state that they have experienced gender-based violence. Dependence on the perpetrator. If one is dependent on the perpetrator, they may not be able to go and report the case because they would still prefer to be in a protected state. What is the impact of gender-based violence for adults and for children? Under sexual and physical violence, the impact on the society is that one can get sexually transmitted infections, those are STIs, suffer chronic injuries, chronic pain, genital pain. One can get cervical cancer or unwanted pregnancies or other body injuries. Under psychological impact, there's attempted or complete suicide, avoidance of intimacy, withdrawal from the society, sleep disturbance, low self-esteem, anxiety, fear, substance abuse and alcohol abuse, and confusion, among others. So when one experiences such or shows such symptoms, they could be suffering one form of gender-based violence or another. Under social impact, there's breakage of social contact with family and friends, strained relationships in families, less emotional support, isolation, or low likelihood of marriage. There are protective factors of gender-based violence that can be used by adults to help children. One of them being, be available and involved in your child's life. In every activity they do, attend and see what they do so that you watch and see the people they interact with. Get to know the people in your child's life. It's important to know the teachers, the coaches, the caregivers, and their friends and friends' parents, so that you are able to keep a watch on your child fully. Talk about the media. There's a lot of information in the media about gender-based violence, and it's an opening for you to discuss with your child about gender-based violence, and so that they may also know and understand the severity or the importance of the challenge. Know the warning signs. Be aware of the warning signs that your child shows. Notice any changes in their behavior, however small, and not only your child, but also other children, your neighbors, and any other child in your neighborhood. Remember, it affects the community at large. Choose caregivers carefully. Vet all the caregivers you get to meet before you employ them, so that their services, so that they are able to take care of your child fully without fear of them violating your child. Let them know they won't get into trouble. Let your child know that if they experience any form of gender-based violence, they are able to confidently tell you about it, knowing that you will come through with the promise of taking care of them and keep your promise. A child remembers promises that are kept. Give them the chance to raise new topics. When you talk to your child, when you're having your time with your child, allow them to pick a topic and start a discussion on it. That's the time they are most likely able to bring up a situation where they've experienced gender-based violence. You can do it by asking, is there anything else you want to talk about apart from what we have talked about? Teach your child how to talk about their bodies confidently and name their body parts. It's important that a child knows their body parts in the actual names and not using nicknames. Because when you report the cases of gender-based violence on minors and they appear in court, a child will use the nicknames. And by law, some of those nicknames don't exist. And the case is lost because of that. So teach them to be confident about their bodies and their body parts. Teach them boundaries. Teach them that no one has the right to touch them or make them feel uncomfortable, including hugs and tickles. Avoid hugs and tickles that is not necessary. There are services available in the community that anyone who has experienced gender-based violence, and mostly sexual violence, can receive. And one of them is prevention of pregnancy for women and girls after rape or defilement. There's prevention of HIV and STIs. When one receives treatment immediately, some of these diseases or infections, you're protected against it immediately. Counseling services are given at the health center when you arrive, and days later or scheduled, so that you are able to manage the emotional effect of gender-based violence. There is legal or justice and police services, and these services come for those victims or survivors who would like to take the case further by choice, so that the perpetrators are dealt with. There's shelter and protection services, which is given by those in the society, social workers, children's services. They will always find protection for those who have been injured and violated by perpetrators. There's a referral pathway to be followed that helps manage and cope with gender-based violence after the fact. The first and most important thing, when you experience or you know someone who has experienced gender-based violence, is telling someone and seeking help. Do not hide or isolate yourself after experiencing gender-based violence. Find someone you trust and can relate with, who will help you go to the hospital and explain your situation, because you may be too traumatized to do it on your own or understand the effect or impact of the violence. Next is immediate response. Immediate response is you go to a health center. When you're injured, violated, you go to a hospital first, not the police station. At the hospital, you receive medical treatment, tests are done, you are taken care of if in case you're exposed to STIs or HIV. After that, if it is your will, you can go to the police station or seek legal action. Finally, after immediate response, even days after you are not yet healed, you still need to seek psychosocial counseling so that you are able to move on after the incident. Also, you may need to seek protection and security from the person who committed the violation. In case anyone has suffered any form of gender-based violence, do not fear to approach someone else so that they may be able to take you to the next step so that you may get healing. And that is why, as counselors at Parklands Baptist Church, we offer our services to help you mentally come to terms with what has happened to you and get treatment. Welcome anytime. Thank you for listening.